Welcome to Take Me Through Your Day. On our episode today, we have a small business owner who is also in a touring band. We also discuss a handful of other jobs as we go down the line. But I think you'll enjoy it. And if you stick through to the end, I'll explain later, but I'll pop in. As per usual, if you or anyone you know would like to be on the show, you can get us on all social media at TakeMeTYD. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the show. Alright, so, what would you say you do for a living? Like if someone asked you at a party.
I run a small-scale lawn maintenance company.
Okay. So let's just start with that. We'll go through like a basic day.
Okay.
In that. What time would you wake up?
It depends. Anytime from, 8:30, maybe.
Now, is that something you choose because you schedule these appointments, or is it you just like 8:30?
I like 8:30 because it gives me some time to get some things done around the house if I have to, but before I head out and actually eat a decent meal and not have to rush by the end of the day.
Fair enough. Do you use an alarm clock? Is that something you do, or you just kind of just set yourself to 8:30? And
generally, I use an alarm clock, but I want to say honestly, it's not as convenient as that because about half of the days I'm waking up because the dogs are barking.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of days that I'm up by 7, and once I'm up, I might as well stay up and just start on my day.
Fair enough. What would you say you have like a morning routine? Like what do you get into just to get the day started?
Wake up, take the dogs out to the bathroom, and come back in, make some food, and then head out to the van and start my day.
Okay, so how many?
It's pretty basic.
What? Yeah, it's fine though. Just going through the events of your day. So how many yards would you say you do in a day? You just do residential or commercial, or
it's mostly commercial, although some of them are multiple properties owned by, say, like a landlord. I have a few clients that are like that. That'll be they'll own anywhere between 1 and maybe 6 different properties that I'll maintain for them.
Okay.
But I usually head out and try to schedule things so that I'm only hitting one area of town at a time. That way I'm not running all around town every day. That way I just kind of go to an area like Squirrel Hill and stay in Squirrel Hill for the day, as opposed to wasting not just gas by traveling around, but also traffic can really eat up a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, especially around here.
Yeah.
I bet.
So let's say my average Monday is anywhere between, I will say, 11 and 16 properties.
Okay, that's a fair bit of work right there for a day.
And then the other days are usually a couple less, and it kind of trickles down as the week goes on. So that maybe on a Thursday I might only have 5, and that way, if something happens where I get screwed up at the beginning of the week, say equipment failure or I get rained out, that way I still have the rest of the week to fit everything into the cracks, that in my schedule, and still put in some extra time each day, and hopefully get done by the end of Friday that way.
Yeah. All right, good. Well, let's back up a little bit, and before we even go through your day, how do you get started doing something like this? Is this just something you just started doing a couple lawns and then it just built from there? Or was this your plan?
Well, I have been doing this since the age of 10.
Okay, that's kind of what I was digging for. All right.
With my father. And he did it because he worked in the mills in the 70s. And whenever 1980-81 hit, a bunch of people got laid off from the mills, and he had nowhere to go. So he got this crazy idea at the time, because many people weren't doing it, honestly, back then, that he was going to go and buy a lawnmower and just start to do some odd lawn cutting here and there. And eventually the whole thing built up to the point where he was doing full-on landscaping and rebuilding yards. And
nice. I never even thought about that not being a thing in the past. Like,
yeah,
I just think if there's yards, there's people cutting.
I'm sure people did it, but not to the scale that people do now. If they're doing it, it just, back then it wasn't a popular idea to work for yourself, because you kind of didn't have to. I think employment was a little more stable back then, where whenever my dad got out of high school, which he didn't even graduate, he just quit school and went and got a job in the steel mill, and that's kind of what you did back then. And you made $20 an hour back in the 70s, which now would be probably like making $50 an hour.
Yeah.
And you did that on no education, and you did it for the rest of your life, and that was it.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people did in this area. But ever since, everything changed, you had to be a little more innovative.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I'm doing this. It's the options for people have changed so dramatically that, people don't even know what's out there half the time.
Yeah.
And
I'll back up a little bit to finish off your question as well. So he was doing that, and eventually around the age of 10, 11, I started going out with him just to, just help here and there. I really wasn't cutting lawns right away, just more carrying things around and just kind of helping out. Yeah. And, he'd give me a few bucks here and there, but eventually things built each summer, and got to the point where a couple seasons later, I was, walking behind a mower, and he was paying me money. And I did this all the way up through high school until maybe my senior year, and then I couldn't stand working with my dad. And then I told him I didn't want to do it anymore. And he always had other people helping as well at that point, so it wasn't any big loss to him. And I probably did that up until, I just had other jobs throughout high school and throughout my 20s, and probably around 29 or 30, I decided that I hated working for people, and I was trying to think of something else that I could do, and it clicked that I could do this lawn cutting thing, because I probably wouldn't hate it as much if I wasn't doing it with my dad.
Yeah.
So I went out and got a lawnmower, a weed whacker, and a gas can, and that's really all you needed to get started.
No, all right. Well, that's optimistic. I like that.
And I built it up pretty quickly from there. I remember the first year, I probably had about 40 properties already. And I took ads out in the local penny saver and built it up from there. And I really haven't put any ads out in, I want to say, maybe a decade now.
All right. So you started with the penny saver ad, and then did you keep those clients, or is it kind of like a word of mouth rolling around the neighborhood kind of thing?
Now it's mainly word of mouth, even though I have one or two of those clients from way back then. Very small handful, but there are other people that have, I've either had a falling out with, we didn't see eye to eye on some things, or they moved away, or they sold their house, or they died.
Okay, well, let's jump back into present day. Let's do like where your timeline is here.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you had a falling out with some. Do you have any good stories of just like bad clients?
Some of them, they just see things differently, and honestly, some of them will just start making things up. They'll in their mind they'll change the agreement that we had.
Okay.
You know, for the work done against that dollar amount. And sometimes this will even go on for a couple of years. Excuse me, allergies.
Oh no, you're fine.
And they'll decide, oh no, that other part of the lawn over there, like, you're supposed to be cutting that as well. And that's when I tell them, no, that was all, there was a fence there before or something like that, you know, and they'll be like, no, that's part of it. It's like, well, we have to renegotiate.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's probably time to renegotiate anyhow, because inflation goes up and I have to raise my costs just so I can keep making the same dollar amount, because all of my expenses
Go
like my mowers, my mower repairs, gasoline, 2-cycle oil, trimmer line, hedge trimmers, everything, all the cost of those things go up every couple of seasons as well.
So how do you get into those kind of negotiations? Like, what do you have in your mind, and how do you approach it?
I mainly go off of the types of prices that my father had. You know, and I kind of kept track of what he got per lawn.
So you had a nice template to work with.
Yeah,
from the start.
I did. It was pretty easy for me to jump into.
Okay, nice. Do you have other people that work for you, or are you completely solo?
I'm completely solo. Once in a while, I'll have somebody that'll come with me. Right now, even though I can probably use someone, I'm pretty happy with
just handling it all yourself.
Handling it all myself, even though just because it's nicer, because it's a lot easier to pay my bills without having to pay a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And right now, with the way it's been raining this year, and all the heat and everything, you know, and the grass being kind of out of control, it's already going to be June, and I think in a few weeks it's going to ease off, and it's not going to be so bad, and I'm going to be glad that I didn't get another person.
Yeah, this rain has been insane.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're cutting the lawns, do you like listen to anything in headphones, or you just kind of like go zen with it and just get in your own head? Or
sometimes I listen to headphones. I bring an iPod with me.
Okay, what are you listening to? What are some go-to things you listen to?
Like music,
podcasts, books, whatever.
Just music.
Music.
Yeah.
Right. No band sticking out, just whatever's on on your brain that day.
Some days I just put it on random and just just hope for the best.
That works.
Yeah, it actually makes it interesting, so you're not listening to the same thing all the time when you're cutting the same lawns.
Yeah, I imagine. Do you have any like little pet peeves just about from doing the job for so long, like little things that just get to you that you wish would just stop?
Oh, I'm sure I have a whole list.
I don't know, it's anything that pops out.
Oh, let me think about this. Pet peeves.
Yeah, think about it a little bit, and we're gonna jump into some other stuff.
Yeah, I do actually. People who are essentially, what in my mind, because I have no one else to relate this to usually, because it's just me working there.
That's why I like to ask these kind of questions.
People that I refer to as adult babies.
All right.
Because they buy adult toys, like lawn furniture and things that are supposed to go on their porch or in their yard, garden hoses, things like that. and they leave them all over the yard.
Wow.
And they expect me to pick it up every time like I'm their parent.
So they know you're coming, and they still leave everything just strewn about.
Yes, although in most people's defense, that usually happens just with the places where there are tenants there.
Oh, okay.
So there might be a house divided into 4 or 5 apartments with different sets of people living there. I have no idea who left the stuff laying all over the yard.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in fact, I say I'd probably dislike that even more. This might blow some people's minds. Even more than whenever people don't clean up after their dogs.
Oh, wow. I didn't think of that either. That's, yeah.
That one's even worse.
Oh. And are these people typically home when you're doing this?
No.
Okay.
They're not.
All right, so there's that little removal from shame of like, well, I don't have to see this guy face to face.
Exactly.
I'm gonna be a pig.
Exactly. Yeah, because most of the people, when I collect from them, it's usually at a different date than when the job was done. Whether they pay ahead of time or they pay 6 weeks later, and I just collect all at once.
Now, is this something you're going to their houses to collect, or do they mail you checks, or you have some kind of like Venmo thing?
Some are PayPal, some are cash, some are check.
Okay, so it's a pick your poison kind of deal.
Yeah.
All right, well, do you have any advice for someone who'd want to get into this?
Any advice for someone who would want to get into this?
Yeah, you're aspiring, 17-year-old entrepreneur.
Yeah, I would say pride yourself on doing good work.
Okay, that's solid advice.
Yeah, really. Like, if it takes you a few minutes extra each day at each lawn, put in that extra couple of minutes and do a good job, because, yeah, I mean, sometimes you will lose a client because you've been slacking, and there's. And the other thing is you'll pick up a lot more clients by word of mouth if you do a good job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's less advertising that you have to put out, and that's why I think I've gotten a lot from word of mouth.
That little attention to detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, you mentioned before that you went through a slew of different jobs before you got to this point in your life. You want to get into some of those, or some of your other side projects? Like, I know you're in a couple bands.
Well, I mean, as far as all my jobs go, really, they're mostly all the same. They're all delivery jobs.
Oh, okay. So it was still in the same kind of
Yeah.
vein of things. I mean, I know you got me into cab briefly, but you have any good, anything to say about that? Because that seems like it would be a lot of stories.
Cab?
Yes, cab specifically, not like Uber or Lyft or anything.
Well, I did that for about 10 years, and that was incredible money whenever it was happening and things were prosperous. Most weeks you could just get a cab and just lease a cab for the entire week and concentrate mostly on just airport runs.
Oh,
and
okay.
You'd be out there for 15, 16 hours a day, but you might make $300, $350 a day.
That's awesome, yeah.
And if you're leasing the cab for the entire week, you're planning on being out there for the entire week and working every moment that you're awake. And you just take the cab home to go, just to go to bed, and you wake up in the morning and the cab's right there in front of your house already.
Yeah, I imagine that works out a lot better if that's your plan.
Yeah, but I mean, most of those trips would be airport runs, and you might only do 6 or 7 a day, whether it's to or from town.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the time is just waiting at cab stands or waiting at the cab stand at the airport, and that can take anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours.
What would you choose as your hours? Like, what was your optimal time versus what do you prefer?
I would go usually from 9 a.m. to about 1 a.m.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's pretty much the whole day, yeah.
Yeah, and I would do that every day. And then, yeah, most of those days were concentrated on the airport. But sometimes you knew when the airport wasn't going to be so busy, so you did what you can to fill in the gaps around town. There are other days where I preferred to work in town. I would like the money was good, and there was no point to sit around and wait at the airport because there were so many close trips available.
Yeah.
And you might luck out with one of those being a really great trip anyhow. You know, that would go somewhere like, you know, an hour and a half away.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. Those were great trips, you know. And then
Yeah, I imagine they paid pretty well.
There were other trips that I did out of the airport that would go, like the longest one I did was to Buffalo, New York.
Wow.
Which was 3.5 hours. So it was 3.5 up, 3.5 back. I made $900 off of that trip.
So you get paid for coming back as well?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but
it was...
and I still had to pay for my own gas, but I remember that day, and I already banked $100 before I did that trip.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say I spent about $60 or $70 in gas that day. So the whole day I made about $930.
Wow.
So, I mean, whether or not I'm getting paid to come back, still I'm making
Yeah, that's still a pretty good paycheck.
Close
for
to $1,000 for a day.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me.
Any stories? Like, did it pop in your head? Horror stories, good stories, crazy stories?
Well, I mean that's a
aside the Buffalo.
That's a story in
pretty
itself.
Amazing. Yeah.
There were a lot of other trips. You'd get the occasional weird trip to some town in Ohio that you've never heard before from the airport, you know, and that was usually good for like, you know, $150 or something. Like you'd go to like some place like Stoops Ferry, Ohio, and it's like, what the hell is Stoops Ferry? Well, you're gonna find out.
About to find out. Yeah.
Yeah. You'd do that. Yeah, there was a lot of shenanigans because people have it in their heads that they are never going to see you ever again.
Yeah.
So they're on their purposefully worst behavior.
Oh my God.
Or best, depending on which way you're going to look at it, you know.
Yeah. All right, so let's touch on the band stuff. You just got off tour. You gotta have something to say about that for America's youth.
It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's a good time. That's the dream. Is you know, rock star lifestyle.
Well,
but what's the nuts and bolts of it?
There's no rock star involved there. I mean, it's.
But there's a lot of people out there that the idea of just being in a band and being on tour is the dream.
Yeah, it's still work though. That's what I think a lot of people don't realize. Like, it's still like work. And
that's kind of what I'm trying to get into here.
Yeah.
What's the if you address being a touring band as a job?
It's in a sense it is very similar to driving a cab because there's a lot of long drives you have to put in, and you don't always want to drive, even though that's kind of the, you know, I want to say 60% of what you're doing on this whole trip, depending on if you're out for a month or just 10 days or, you know, or 2 months, whatever. You're going to be driving a lot.
I imagine you guys trade off driving.
Well, of course, yeah. But still, it's a lot of driving.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean the money you're making is usually, it's just going back into the band. It's not going into your pocket.
Yeah, that was another one of my questions.
So
how that gets dispersed, and
so
dealing with promoters or who's hacking up the paychecks.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any money to be made per person, that usually gets split somehow whenever you come back from the tour,
Aha.
depending on how much you have made or lost. Which, I've done some tours that have made a little bit of money.
Okay.
Like nothing fantastic, but it's like, I mean, who knows? I mean, you might go out for 10 days and, like, okay, you're playing shows every night, and, between your merchandise that you sell and, like what you get paid at the door, and once you split it up, once you get back to town, I mean, who knows? I mean, each person might make $300.
Oh, yeah, so that's something.
So, yeah.
Nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
And you get to play your music.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Do you have any advice for, I'm drawing a blank here. Just, okay, is there any stories about, like, dealing with promoters or, clubs that are terrible?
Oh yeah, they're all over the place, and don't think that there's in any part of the world where people are going to be nicer. Because it's the good and bad is spread about equally across the planet, I would say.
Okay.
I've had both good and bad experiences in the United States and over in Europe, and I've heard enough similar stories for people that have played in places like Mexico. People have been treated very well, and other people have gotten ripped off and had the promoter set up some big festival with 15 bands, and then at the end of the night the promoter just runs off with all the money and everybody's looking for him and no one can find him. Well, it's like, guess what? This guy just left with, like, 10 grand in his pocket.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Well, let's get into some of the random stuff, just for fun. We'll wrap it up. You ever go to snack when you're just out and about?
Do what?
Snack. Something to eat. Something to... Like I said, this is random shit. This has nothing to do with...
Oh, of course I do.
Jobs. Okay, let's... Give us one. Go to. You can have anything you want. What are you getting?
Coffee.
Coffee. All right.
Coffee.
Got a coffee in your hand right now.
Yeah.
So, all right, that works. Do you have a shoe preference?
Usually some sort of running shoe.
Okay.
Like New Balance or something like that.
All right, that's
New
fair.
Balance,
You're on your feet a lot.
New Balance or Adidas, something like that.
Yeah, and you're a drummer. Do you have any, like, preferred, shoe when drumming, or shoeless?
New Balance
New
or Adidas.
Right.
Yeah, you usually, whenever my nicer shoes get worn out from drumming and they get down to a certain point, they get moved over to lawn cutting. Because
yeah,
because lawn cutting completely trashes your shoes, so you don't want to buy new shoes to mow lawns in.
Absolutely, that's a good piece of advice for
aspiring.
Yeah,
maybe go buy go to a thrift store and look for used shoes for something with some tread left on it to go and do landscaping in.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, just to stay on the topic of food a little bit, spicy or not spicy?
Spicy.
Spicy, yeah. Love that spicy. What kind of soap do you prefer? No, we get the hard-hitting questions here at the end.
I mean,
all right, let's take it down another.
I use a lot of different types of soap.
Okay, let's go. This is bar or liquid.
Again,
no preference. All right, no preference is an answer.
Yeah,
that's
a lot
fine.
of different types. It depends.
All right.
Like right now, we got this one. It's in the bathroom at home that has coconut oil in it. It's in a big squeeze bottle. It's got a pump on the top.
All right, fair enough. A movie you think you've seen most in your life? I had to change that for asking people their favorite movie because people get all hung up on like, oh, what represents me as a person. But no, everybody has like a movie like, oh, I've seen that a million times.
I've seen Alien quite a bit.
Oh, that's an excellent answer. Love Alien.
Yeah.
Let's see here. All right. What's the best advice you ever got? I know that's a tough one, but just like the first thing that pops into your head. You don't have to dig too deep.
Don't mess with other guys' girlfriends.
Okay.
And don't mess with any girl's boyfriends.
Fair enough. That's a good piece of advice. All right. What type of music do you prefer and why? Prefer.
I don't know. Generally, probably loud rock music. Things are usually pretty abrasive. And why? Because I don't know. I got beat up as a little kid a lot.
And that just helps.
Well, I mean, it's I was drawn to it for some reason. I can't really choose why, but I really think that things like that have a lot to do with your upbringing and your surroundings whenever you're in your formative years.
Okay, yeah, that's a good answer. What's the last pic you took on your phone? You don't have to show me, just a thought.
Well, let's see. Last pic I took on my phone. Oh, there we go. It is of the house I grew up in, as it stands today.
Oh, look at that. That's actually a really good answer.
Big hole in the top.
Yeah, that's wild.
Got these bathrooms here that were actually added on after the construction of the house, because bathrooms weren't something that you had in a house when the house was built.
Yep. It's an old house, all right.
Yeah. And now it's a place where people break in to do drugs.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about like around here somewhere. I'm assuming it's around here somewhere.
About a half hour out.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If someone gave your 18-year-old self $1,000, what do you think they would do with it?
What do you think I would do with it?
Yeah, the 18-year-old you would do with $1,000. Don't have to think about it, just, randomly. Or better yet, what would you tell your 18-year-old self to spend that $1,000 on? And it can't be like a bet or something like that.
Yeah, it's strange because whenever I was 18, I still lived at my parents' house, and honestly, I would say to just save it.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer.
I would just save it. I had nothing. I had no expensive interests at that age at all.
Fair enough. But that's good. That's probably what I would have done as well. Just sit on this for a while. 18-year-old, you maniac.
Yeah.
All right. So last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Shit. What's something you wish you had learned earlier?
Something I wish I had learned earlier.
Something you know now that if you could just put that wisdom out there to a younger you.
I wish I would have learned to play drums earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I started late.
Oh yeah, when'd you start?
When I was 24.
Huh. Yeah, I mean it's not super late, but yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people that start playing music start whenever they're in their early teens.
Yeah.
13, 14.
True. Very true.
I have a friend who started playing drums when he was 5.
Oh wow, yeah.
So
there's a bit of an advantage there, I bet.
I mean, yeah, his dad was a drummer too.
Well, that's where you get that extra heads up.
Yeah, his dad played for Peaches and Herb.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's a good note to go out on too, man. Thanks for doing the show.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that was a really super weird way to end that, but we were on a bit of a time crunch, so that's why I walked right past that Peaches and Herb comment. But I've already talked to him. We're going to do a little follow-up, and we've done follow-ups with some of the other episodes, and I'm just not exactly sure how we're going to post those yet, but they're in there and they're coming, so that should be exciting. I should say for the remainder of this, I explained to this guy that, picture you're talking to some teens that are confused about what to do with their life, And he took the teen part literally, so he kept himself very G-rated. And I kept trying to poke to get good stories out of him because he, cab and touring bands and, all that. But then as soon as I explained that after I shut the mics off, he just went into really good stories. So I fumbled for a recorder and I got a couple of those stories. With his permission, he said that I can post them. And I think that they're a great little bonus to this episode. And it just, just a little bonus for you. So enjoy. Here goes.
Out there, you get to sit there in the holding lot when you're waiting for your trip out.
Yeah.
And not deal with rush hour traffic. And then hopefully get one that's somewhere kind of far.
Yeah.
Okay. Even not headed into town, like headed somewhere weird, like up to Newcastle or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got this little 301 off the dispatch. That's a strip district.
Okay.
I'm like, okay.
Oh, those are the codes.
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll take this 301 real quick because even if I don't go to the airport, it's real quick to any of the cab stands downtown where I can probably make it back here in time. And it was still early enough. So get over there. This couple comes running up. They're all happy and giddy, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, where are you headed? And they're like, you know what? It's probably, you're probably looking for an airport trip, whatever, But we just need to get to one of the hotels. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. At least I get to go straight over one of the cab stands.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, well, you know what? Like, since we're all here in the cab and, we're all like cool with each other, do you think it's all right if my wife here gives me a blowjob in the cab? And I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Like, not thinking that, like, they were for real.
Yeah. Like, oh, yeah, knock yourself out.
Yeah, and they were for real. And he's like, all right, it's go time.
It's go time.
Well, I forget what he said, but it was like something that was just like, okay, we're doing this,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is really fucking happening. This is insane. And so I'm driving them over to the hotel. And, oh no! I know what prompted it. I'm like, no, it's cool. I don't mind. Yeah, and he's just like, oh, well, you know what? Like, well, after you take us to the hotel, why don't you wait for us and we'll get our luggage and you can take us to the airport? I'm like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool. And like that's when he's like, oh, cool. Like since everything's cool, do you think it's okay if she? And I'm like that, and then I'm like, man, this is so weird. And so we're downtown. Like right in front of the bus station at a red light.
Yeah.
They're doing this in the back seat. And there's a school bus full of kids right next to us. Okay? And meanwhile, he's going like, oh, look at my wife's tits. Aren't they amazing? And
oh my God. He's like getting you in on it.
He's like, yeah, he's got her tits out. And I look back and I was like, actually they are. And like they were. They're fucking massive too. And then you get to the hotel, like they were done, and I was pulled over, I was waiting, had the flashers on. They were like, yeah, leave the meter run. And they got their luggage. We went out to the airport. By the time we got out there, it was like, because we had gone just a little bit further from the usual spot at the hotel, and it was also a long ride out there because of the time of day it was, and because I left the meter running while they were getting.
Yeah.
It was like up to $60 by the time we got there.
Yeah.
And we pull up, and I pop the trunk, and he's getting the luggage out, and she's like, oh, well, while he's getting the luggage, I just want to pay with the card. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, I go and like, run the card, and she's like, oh, I'm like, put like a, $15 tip on there for yourself,
nice.
For like, putting up with that. I'm like, what do you mean putting up with it? And she's like, oh, you should have said something. I would have done it too.
Wow.
And the thing is, not only do I believe her, but I think her husband would have been into it.
It's those type of people, man.
Yeah.
It's
and even funnier, like on the way out, they were on the phone, passing the phone back and forth, talking to their kids back home in Arizona. like no, just do the thing with the gate until we get there, and then we'll fix the gate once we get home.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a spectacular. That's the kind of story I was digging around for.
Yeah. Sorry.
And we didn't get into any delivery stuff, because I imagine you got some of that.
Some like not quite that, but
no, not there. But I mean, like, and it's something that, like, I know I have stories that I can't think of any right now, but there's a million.
There's one over here I think it was on Summerlee or College. This is like way back.
Yeah.
And when I was working for Pizza, and I remember it was the last delivery I did that day. I was working a rare Saturday afternoon, and I was like getting off at like 4 or 5 p.m. It was the last one I was doing of the day. It was raining. There's a couple steps to go up. There's like 3 steps that go up to the front door. Mm-hmm. Rung the bell, opened it up, and this woman goes to like grab the pizza, and she's probably, I don't know, maybe late 50s, completely naked. And I'm like, she's like real, like saggy, droopy, like exactly what you think.
Now this is like she's full swing, opens the door like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah. And she was like, "Hey, how you doing?" Yeah, and I'm like, and she's like, "Oh, so how much is that?" I'm like, $7.75, and I'm like, she's like, "Okay, here you go, just keep the change." I'm like, "Okay, bye."
She just had the money in her hand.
Yeah. And there was another time I went, and this was over on Summerlee, couple houses up from what are the convenience stores called over here?
Fuel On?
Well, now it's Fuel On, but yeah.
I forget. It used to be something else.
Anyhow, it's like a few houses up on that side, maybe like 1 or 2 houses up. It's like right there, I want to say like 600 block maybe, and it was like 605 maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like one of these houses that's divided up into like 6 apartments.
Yeah.
And this is before cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And ringing the bell, no one's answering. And like the thing is, like, they were so into this thing, like they would send you back. So like if you didn't make the delivery the first time.
Yeah.
So you were like, God damn it, like I gotta make this delivery, or they're just gonna send me back and waste more of my time with it.
Yeah.
So ringing the goddamn bell, no one's answering, beating on the door because thought maybe they could hear, maybe it was close enough. Turns out no, but then like someone was on their way out, and I'm like, "Oh, is this for you?" They're like, "No." They're like, "Oh, you just want to go in and check?" I'm like, "Yeah, fine, cool, thank you." It was like apartment 5, I remember. And I go up, because you had to go up the stairs, go down the hall, go up, and I'm beating on the door. I found it, and I hear something on the other side. And I'm like, "Hello, like, pizza guy, come on." And door opens, and it's this woman, and she's like, looks like she just woke up, and she's like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Did you order a pizza?" And she's like, "Oh yeah."
Oh, good answer.
Good thing you got here. And I'm like, "Okay, well, do you want to, like, pay for this thing?" And she's like, "Oh yeah." And it was like another like $7 and something pizza. Like, she was just bombed out of her mind.
Yeah.
She was just so fucking trashed. So anyhow,
and this was Saturday afternoon?
No. This is a different one.
Oh, this is a different one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, this was at night.
Okay.
And this was, but like not late. It was like 8 p.m.-ish.
Okay.
And she goes, and she's like looking around. I'm like, "You want to pay me for it?" And she's like, "Oh yeah." She's just like, I'm like, "Here, do you want the pizza?" She's like, "Yeah, fine." She goes and sets it on the table. Something happens where it's unbalanced and it flips off the table, goes flying up in the air. Like, pizza goes everywhere. She's like, that's my fault. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm like, I still need the money. And she's like, okay. And then she turns, slips, fucking... Oh, no. I know what it was. She turns and slips after she set it on the table. She falls, hits her head off the table, and that's what made the pizza fly up in the air. And she fell on the ground, and she was not moving. And I was like, oh my God, like, someone's going to blame me for killing this woman. And I was like, are you okay? Finally, like, she got up. She's like, oh yeah, I took a spill. And I'm like, yeah, you did. Yeah. And there was pizza all over the place at this point. I'm just like, listen, I just need to get paid so I get out of here. She's like, here's a 20. And I'm like, okay, here's your change. And she's like, no, you just keep it. You're worth it. I ran out of there because I just didn't want anything else to happen.
Oh yeah, that's a rough one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was like a $12 tip.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it in the end. But that level of frustration, like I've been there. And I just wrap this up. We just wrap this very simple transaction.
Yeah, really, yeah.